Hey everyone, Ashley Mayu here with the Daily Racing Form. We're going to do another stakes preview, this time though for Santa Anita Park. Their feature race this Saturday, May 13th, is race number 9, the Grade 3 San Luis Rey at 1.5 miles on the turf course. We'll take a look at this field, and in terms of who's in here, 8 runners in total, and I think there's some very nice horses in here. Dicey Mochara needs no introduction. Awfully Naughty raced extremely well last time out in a Grade 2 event. Then some other horses, Midcourt, who's going to try his hand at the turf for the first time in his career. The number 8, Opry, was an interesting horse in terms of his races. He's going to try to stretch it out from a couple of tries at 1.125 and 1.25 miles. We'll see if he can handle the 1.5 mile distance. We'll start with the number 1, Explain This Audit. This is a horse that's going to certainly need to step up off his most recent 2 efforts. He's been here at Santa Anita at 1 mile and more recently at 1.125 miles. And to me, he did pick it up. Going 1.125 miles, the added distance helped his chances. He was able to finish 4th in that field of 9, and he's got a kind of a late closing kick. You go down the page, when you see the race that he won, he circled the field. So 1.5 miles will be a question for him. He's never gone this distance, but he seems like a horse that needs all the ground that he can get in those final stages, plus a little bit of a setup in the end. Ramon Vasquez has the call and has not been aboard him prior. The number 2, Planetario. This is a Brazilian horse in the Richard Mandela barn, who I think is very intriguing. Now, he has one start here stateside. That was all the way back in June of 2022. He finished 5th in a 1.125 mile turf event, but look at his workouts. It's a long layoff for a horse to get ready for 1.5 miles. And yes, his best races are going long. You can see he raced very well at 1.25 miles and 1.5 miles, but he's got an interesting work tab. Looking at some of these works, April 28th, a mile, then the 3rd of May, just that 3 furlong drill. Then he went 1.125 miles on May 6th. That's not something you see too often. And then more recently, just today, had a work on May 11th when we're recording this for 3 furlongs. So it looked like they're really trying to get him ready for this distance. Hector Barrios has been riding very well out in California. I just think he's a little intriguing in this spot. It is a long layoff, though, for any horse to be ready to go 1.5 miles, but it seems like Richard Mandela is doing everything that he can to make sure this horse is ready to roll. And the number 3, Dicey Mochara. This one out of the Leonard Powell barn. We're going to take a look at his most recent effort, which isn't too long ago. It's actually on April 29th at Golden Gate Fields, their 11th race. You're trying to look for him right now. He's a little hard to find. He's got those red silks kind of in the middle of that 5-horse band. He's going to swing to the outside here. He had post 9 that day. He's really going to try to close, but in terms of trip, he's not able to do so. When you see some of the other horses in here, they're moving better at this point, and they're just traveling a lot better. And he gets into a little bit of traffic here, in my opinion. So he's going to have to settle for 4th in here. He's beaten by just over a length, and I think that was at 1 mile. You go down the page prior to that, he had those races at 1.25 miles. He does have experience at 1.5 miles. I do think the mile, even though I think other horses were moving better in the stretch, I still think that's not his ideal distance. I like him to stretch out. And I think this is really going to help his chances. The number 4, Awfully Naughty, 8-5 on the morning line. We're going to take a look at that most recent effort because I think that explains the short price here. This horse was just so impressive in the Charlie Whittingham, just closing really strong here. I mean, the 2 and the 1, they're trying to hang around. Dicey Mochara and Opry are those 2 horses. Once Awfully Naughty is called upon, he's just much the best there. He wins by a length in the end. It was his first start in several months, and prior to that, he had raced very well at Turfway Park, going 1.25 miles on the synthetic, and he didn't take respect last time out, but he's certainly going to be played in this spot. Distance should suit him well. The last time he tried 1.5 miles on the turf was at Keeneland. He finished 2nd behind Reigning Spirit. He does look very tough in this race on Saturday. The number 5, Rim Protector, is a long shot at 30-1. I did want to show, though, his last race was at Golden Gate back in late April. Just an allowance optional claiming event. You can see him there. We've circled him. He's the number 1. In terms of the complexion of this race, Jimmy Blue Jeans on top throughout and is able to get the job done. Rim Protector's really trying at this point, but the way that this race was played out, it certainly benefited speed in this race. So the chances were against him. He is a horse that has the ability to close from off of it. When was his last win? November at Golden Gate, going 1.5 miles. Now, I know it's on the synthetic. I know it's a different surface. but I did think he could be intriguing on the stretch out. And I do think last time out, the chances were against him, just knowing that the fraction set were something that were very comfortable for the eventual winner. The number 6, Agatino, an Irish bred gelding in the Phil D'Amato barn, who has missed the board in his last 3 efforts. When he first came here, I think he might have needed the race. He raced very well in his second start for the outfit, but he just needed to find more in those last couple efforts, most recently at 1.25 miles. He's going to need to improve. Looking at some of the horses he's faced, the winner of the race, Two Back, I think is a very good horse. But I think that, you look at Agatino's race, just watch the replay. It was just not an ideal trip by any means. So I'm willing to go through some of his races and maybe forgive them. And he's a horse that maybe you could look at underneath in the exotics. The number 7, Midcourt, I mentioned, is a horse that's going to try the turf for the first time. An 8-year-old son of Midnight Loot, who we all know has had some really big performances in grade 1 and grade 2 events going long on the dirt. The question will be the surface. And the other question will be, is the long layoff. Now, he hasn't been seen since February, but that's February of 2022. That's over a year ago. He's had a slew of works for John Sheriffs, and the outfit doesn't typically have these horses coming back off a 6-month layoff. He's 0 for 8 on this angle. I definitely think Midcourt, we know how talented he is, and I think his talent can carry him a long way, assuming he can handle the turf. But for me, it's just a wait-and-see approach. This is, something that I think he's going to need a race or two, and in the past, he has shown that he needs a race. And then finally, rounding out the field, the number 8, Opry. This is a horse that was third. We saw in that replay of the Charlie Whittingham. Prior to that was third in the San Marcos. I'm wondering if and potentially he could have distance limitations. I look at his most recent effort. I thought he fell a little flat in the stretch, but I also think that Awfully Naughty was just moving the best of the bunch. The San Marcos, he was third best. I'm just wondering if he's maybe more of a 1.125 horse, maybe 1.5 miles. Is too far for him, but you go down the page, he has actually raced well at 1.5 miles. He's just got that one effort where he finished third in New York, beaten by half a length. But just from what I've seen, I think I personally prefer him at a bit of a shorter distance. Mike Smith is going to climb aboard him in this spot on Saturday. So there's the field of 8. I'm going to go with the number 4, Awfully Naughty, as my top pick. I was just visually impressed with his run last time out. The way he was able to kind of pass the second and third place finishers, which are Dicey Mochara and Opry, who he's going to face again. I think in terms of trip, he was further back last time out and was able to circle the field, but he could be a bit more tactical. So for me, Awfully Naughty from there. Looked at some others. The 3, Dicey Mochara, has just been so impressive in these, kind of distance races on the turf, and I think should improve on the stretch out based on that most recent effort. The 5, Rim Protector. I know this horse is the longest shot on the board in terms of the morning line at 30-1. I think he can get a minor share, maybe not necessarily trifecta, or maybe if you're looking at the superfecta, maybe you want to toss him in there. I'm just really curious to see him go 1.5 miles on the turf because he has been successful at Golden Gate on their synthetic. And then finally, the 2, Planetario. The workout's very interesting to see the pattern from Richard Mandela, certainly getting this horse ready to go long. And in the past, this horse has been extremely successful in Brazil going long. He still may need a race as well, but just a little intrigued by his work tab. But for me, the number 4, Awfully Naughty, is my top pick. And Saturday's grade 3 San Luis Rey at Santa Anita. Good luck.